The Denver Public Schools principal who first revealed here how students facing charges clear up to attempted murder are put back in class, he may now face an investigation himself. His attorney told our Chris Vanderveen today, if the district retaliates against McAuliffe principal Kurt Dennis, DPS should get ready for a lawsuit.
Are you mad?
Yeah, frustrated.
Inside Denver's largest middle school, its leader told us something he knew put his job at risk.
You're aware of that?
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yeah, it's important.
Kurt Dennis wanted us to know that daily he and his staff had to do something neither he nor his staff was trained to do: pat down a student accused of attempted murder.
The school district told you because this attempted murder took place off school grounds, it doesn't impact his life on school grounds.
Correct.
1 month later, his attorney says those words have now led to this.
Pursuant to his appearing on camera with you, DPS has launched a full-scale investigation of him.
Which is why this morning, at 6:41 a.m. to be precise, David Lane sent this email to the DPS superintendent and Board of Education. It was filled with some legalese and case law, but in essence, it said this.
Basically, if you touch one little principal hair on his little principal head, you'll be in federal court explaining to a federal judge why you're violating his First Amendment freedom of speech.
Lane says should DPS move against Principal Dennis, he will move against the district.
Instead of looking at their policy about allowing violent kids to remain in school, instead they're focusing all their attention on going after Kurt with his bogus investigation, looking for excuses to discipline him.
Kurt Dennis's words to us came shortly after another pat-down led to a double shooting inside East High School. He didn't want a repeat of that inside his school. Today, parents of his students said they're watching this as well.
And the fact that, he would lose his job and his ability to provide for his family because he stood up for them and for their safety is crazy.
If he were to lose his job because of it, I think we're really teaching our kids how the system's broken.
A DPS spokesperson told us the district has not seen a formal complaint, so we are not able to comment on that situation. A spokesperson for the board told us the potential investigation is an operational matter and not under the purview of the Board of Education.
Interesting to note, the board is calling this a, quote, potential investigation, end quote. Also interesting to note that we have spoken to numerous other individual school administrators who have come to the same conclusions Dennis had, but they've not felt safe enough to talk to us. You can guarantee, Kyle, they're going to be watching this closely as well.
Certainly, action against him might send a signal to them as well. I mean, we know how school districts work. A lot happens behind closed doors, and it certainly seems like members of the McAuliffe community and now Dennis's attorney is saying, no, if something happens, we want it to be out in the open to some extent.
There is a chilling effect when this type of activity takes place. And David Lane talked about that today, and you can guarantee other people will be watching this closely. If the lesson is talk to 9 News, you get in trouble, that's going to be a problem for lots of folks.
Should note, nobody's come forward to say that anything that he said was inaccurate.
True.
All right, Chris Vanderveen, thank you. Speaking of secrecy in DPS, we should mention that 9 News and some other media outlets are now suing Denver Public Schools, alleging that DPS illegally hid discussions of school safety in executive session, then came out with their new security policy already decided. That lawsuit was filed today. Following the shooting at East High School last month, the board met privately for 4.5 hours. We don't know what they said, but they came out with a memo instructing the superintendent to bring back school resource officers into Denver classrooms. That was never a policy that was discussed in public before that moment. The lawsuit by 9 News and other media outlets is asking to let the public see the recordings of that closed-door session. One thing we might learn is who's telling the truth, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock or School Board Vice President Ayanta Anderson. Anderson claims that the board only put school resource officers back in class because they were told that the mayor was going to do it through an executive order. Hancock's office says that Anderson's claim is completely false. So just like clockwork, Democratic Governor Jared Polis signed some new gun bills today, and gun lobbyists sued to block them in court. Legislation to require 3-day waiting periods for gun purchases and to raise the minimum age to purchase a weapon are now facing legal challenges from the No Compromises gun group Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. They're also threatening lawsuits over 2 other gun bills signed today. One would expand the red flag laws to allow healthcare providers, district attorneys, and educators to join those who can seek a court order to temporarily remove someone's guns. Other bill would make it easier for victims of gun violence to sue the firearm industry. A Democratic proposal to ban so-called assault weapons failed at the legislature this year. Democrats continue to work on a bill that would ban ghost guns, which are often homemade guns from kits. They don't have serial numbers. Denver mayoral candidate Kelly Brough continues to rack up endorsements from former mayoral candidates who share her call for a crackdown on homelessness in the city. Democratic State Senator Chris Hansen endorsed Brough today. He finished 6th in the first round of voting. Brough's also endorsed by former candidates Kwame Spearman and Thomas Wolfe. All of them made clearing homeless encampments a top priority. Brough's biggest name endorsement is from former Mayor Wellington Webb. Brough's opponent in the June 6 runoff, Mike Johnston, he's endorsed by former Mayor Federico Pena and Democratic State Rep Leslie Herod, who ran 5th in that first round. Johnston and Brough have one more debate here on 9 News. It's our final mayoral debate, Tuesday, May 16th, the day after ballots go into the mail. We'll be live 7 p.m. on Channel 20 and streaming on 9 News Plus. Border policy trickles up, or north at least, to cities like Denver that have been welcoming migrants for months. The Biden administration has announced new changes to its border policy, knowing that Title 42 will be lifted next month. Our Angeline McCall spoke with an immigration attorney about how the changes there could impact the migrants coming here.
At the U.S.-Mexico border, changes are coming.
The Biden administration is trying to find ways to not let people apply for asylum. So we're very concerned about the situation at the border.
Immigration attorney Arturo Jimenez says Biden has announced policies that will make it harder to immigrate to the U.S. legally, like a so-called transit ban. It would require most migrants to seek asylum in another country first before coming to the U.S. Another rule would mean those who crossed illegally will not be eligible for asylum.
Both President Trump and President Biden are preventing people from availing themselves of this legal pathway, and it's in violation of U.S. law.
Other policies announced this week will make it easier, including creating processing centers in Central and South America.
No, that is the bright part of this announcement. The processing centers in the countries of origin, starting in Guatemala and in Colombia, will absolutely help those for family unity, those folks who've applied with a family member and they have been bottlenecked, they've been waiting.
For immigrants hoping to arrive in Denver, Jimenez believes not much will change.
People who are desperate and fleeing very serious violence or drought or other issues are coming to the United States anyway. So there's a lot of doubt that this will actually stem or prevent people from coming to the U.S.
This is no doubt the Biden administration trying to position itself ahead of Title 42's expiration happening in about 2 weeks. But many worry policies ultimately don't impact if people come, just simply how they come to the United States.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very fair question to be asked, Angelina, about how much the folks who are at the beginning point of their journey even know about the ins and outs of current border policy. And then obviously by the time they get here months later, policies may have changed.
Yeah, and that's actually what we're seeing with many of the migrants who have actually settled here in Denver. They came, and now in the midst of their resettlement, there have actually been new policies implemented and announced by the Biden administration, meaning that things have changed from the time that they left their home country to the time they actually get to Denver. And not only to mention that, right, but it also means that people are going to come regardless, and that is the position many people are in. And when they are in a position of desperation and they are in a position in their home countries of not being able to survive, they're ultimately going to make that decision to come either way.
Yeah, even if they're well aware of U.S. border policy, it may not be top of mind given their challenges at home. Angeline, thank you. So you all are this close to raising $25,000 in a couple of days to complete a park in a small town in southern Colorado, a park that has sat unfinished for nearly 20 years because the original funding ran out. The people of Colorado City, southwest of Pueblo, are determined to finish their town's only park. Your 150th weekly Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is supporting the nonprofit Valley First, which is trying to bring the Greenhorn Park back to life. Right now, the asphalt track there is run down. There are gopher holes and rattlesnakes in the field. So Valley First is nearing its fundraising goal to install a new turf field and bleachers, to add a Little League baseball field, and to rebuild the trails in the area. They want to really build a community gathering place like they currently don't have in that part of Pueblo County. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in donating to Valley First. And someday when you're down south of Pueblo, swing by Colorado City and see that park you helped build. America's top diplomat is in Denver. We'll ask him whether his boss, President Biden, has the mental and physical ability to serve a second term. And we'll ask if the State Department might know anything about the Russian hockey player for the Avs who kind of disappeared. And this week's good news, Pure Poetry, Shakespeare Festival sets the stage for our favorite Friday question. Next. Tonight's next conversation is with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who happened to be in Denver today, here for the City Summit of the Americas. After meeting with the mayor of Kyiv, Ukraine today and touring the Denver Police Crime Lab, Blinken sat down with Marshal Zellinger. Given that Blinken is in charge of any kind of sticky international situation, Marshal asked the secretary if he'd happen to be looped in on the mysterious absence of Avstar Val Nichushkin, who's a Russian citizen.
Is your office involved in or monitoring a situation involving Val Nichushkin or the woman from this police report?
This is news to me, so to best of my knowledge, no. Now, I have to acknowledge, just in case there are any conspiracy theories out there, I am a New York Rangers fan.
When would something like this reach your office?
In all seriousness, if there was some kind of legitimate international concern involving another country, of course, that's something that we'd be seized with.
Prior to being Secretary of State, Antony Blinken was an advisor on President Biden's 2020 campaign. Republican members of the House Judiciary Committee want to know about Blinken's role in an October 2020 letter signed by dozens of former intelligence leaders calling the Hunter Biden laptop story Russian disinformation. Laptop data analyzed by CBS News found no evidence it was faked or tampered with. What was your involvement in the letter calling it Russian disinformation?
So one of the great things about the job that I'm doing now is I don't do politics because I've got too much else going on.
Blinken went on to detail his work as Secretary of State, so let's fast forward.
I don't get involved in distractions, and I don't get involved in politics.
It sounds like you can multitask.
Oh, that's a job requirement.
So how come you can't do that and also explain what your involvement was in this letter about Russian disinformation?
So my job is to focus on what I'm here to do, the responsibilities that I have. As to the letter that you mentioned, I've got it, and I'll respond to it appropriately.
This week, his boss, President Biden, announced he's seeking re-election. Blinken spends time with the president with no cameras around and no teleprompters. He's 80 now. What concerns do you have about his mental and physical ability to do this job into his mid-80s?
None. I've got to tell you, you're right. I see him virtually every day. And I see him grappling with the most challenging issues that we face as a country, both, in my case, mostly international issues, but I see a lot of the domestic work too. And my problem is keeping up with him.
My 7-minute, 10-second conversation with Secretary Blinken is on the next YouTube channel. It started with his role in trying to limit fentanyl coming into the country and if lowering fentanyl penalties makes that harder. And a question about are there countries he has traveled where if he wasn't Secretary of State, he would not want people to know he was American. He has no hesitation, he says, going around the country with the American flag at his back, but maybe Russia is not the most popular place to be an American right now.
Yeah. Speaking of Russia, we kind of wrestled and went back and forth on whether to ask him about the Val Nichushkin situation because we genuinely don't know. Is this a really serious situation? Does this involve any kind of geopolitical thing? Is it purely a personal situation? Had no idea, but he was sitting right there to be asked.
It may be the most ridiculous thing I could ask someone in a position of power. But who knows? The team is being quiet about it. We have this police report that's not very specific enough that suggests there's a reference to a woman from Russia who was born in Ukraine. I've got someone who deals with Russia and Ukraine. Yeah. Why not ask about it? Because you never know. Maybe there is something, and maybe there isn't something now, but there could be. Maybe it's absolutely nothing, but we had the opportunity to ask.
There's incredible sensitivity right now between interaction between Americans and Russian law enforcement over there, and perhaps Russians and American law enforcement here. So anyway, I'm glad you asked. Thank you.
You can see the weekend from here if you're heading up to the high country. It looks beautiful. Some blue skies, nice dry roads. We saw about 4 to 8 inches of new snowfall up in the mountains through the foothills late last night and early this morning. Just some rain here for Denver, and that storm system long gone as we have blue skies. Still on the cooler side, upper 50s, low 60s for daytime highs here across the urban corridor with 40s up in the mountains. Unfortunately, we're still stuck with those strong winds, anywhere between 25 to 35 miles per hour up into northern Colorado and then further to the south toward Monument Hill. Our storm system, along with the wet weather, already tracking off to the south and to the east into parts of Texas tonight, where they do have a tornado watch in place. Not a lot cooking on HD Doppler 9. As we go throughout the futurecast early tomorrow morning, you'll wake up to some sunshine here in Denver. By the afternoon, a few high-level clouds, everything kind of shifting off to the southeast throughout the evening. High pressure rolling back in. That means a nice little warm-up on our hands. Mother Nature timing this one pretty well as far as the weekend goes. We'll be looking at highs in the low 70s, 50s up in the mountains, upper 60s on Sunday. And so far, I do have some spring thunderstorms making a comeback next week.
Each week, we ask a simple question. Sometimes we get a simple answer.
I don't know what else to say. I'm happy.
Your good news has a Shakespearean twist. Next. After multiple fires, shutdowns, and other incidents at the Suncor Refinery over the past few months, their alert system for neighbors it's still a work in progress. Denver Post reporter Noelle Phillips happened to record her reaction to the Suncor recording they got, and while she didn't say a word, that says it all.
Suncor began planned maintenance on Plant 2 at the Commerce City Refinery on April 17th. This work is commonly known as a turnaround. If you wish to learn more about why we do planned maintenance, please go here https://www.suncor.com/nca/news and stories/our stories/turnarounds #:text equals %E2 %80 %9 ca %20 shut %20 down %20 or %20 turnaround comma %2 c %20 refining %20 and %20 logistics %2 c %20 Suncor.
Nailed it, guys. To share your good news or not to share your good news? Well, we've been doing it for 348 weeks now, so we might as well keep it up. This Friday, we posed our favorite question to the students at the Downtown Shakespeare Festival.
The moon, the sun, it is not moonlight now. I am Katarina from Taming of the Shrew.
My good news today would probably be being here because it's so fun and I get to be other characters in Shakespeare. What? Jealous, Oberon, Fairy, skip away, 5 forsworn, his company.
My good news is that I'm performing today and we've worked so hard and I'm really excited for it.
I'm just really excited to be here. This is my first time at Shakespeare Festival.
My role is Petruchio in Taming of the Shrew.
I'm in Taming of the Shrew and I'm Hortensio, which is Portenzio's best friend.
My good news is that I have a lot of supportive friends and a loving family.
I'm just really happy to be here, and it's awesome to be here. And I don't know what else to say. I'm happy.
Well, Ford, but Soft Company is here, and then I have a couple other ones.
If she be Ford, then has the top Hortensio to be unknown. And then I exit the stage. I just love my character so much.
It's a celebration of Shakespeare's history and all the wonderful plays he's written and all the tragedies and love stories he's written.
Magical things can happen, like in Midsummer Night's Dream.
Joyful kids, just the best. The course of true feedback never did run smooth, but that's kind of the point, right? So what's next? Varying takes on Colorado's new gun laws. Sean says holding law-abiding citizens accountable for the unlawful actions of criminals and letting criminals go. Steve thinks, aren't we rushing it with these common sense laws? Shouldn't we give the thoughts and prayers a few more decades to work? Jackie says, thank you for giving us an excellent program that informs us and makes your viewers think. At the risk of sounding like Chick-fil-A, my pleasure. See you next time.